Hey Outlaws, and welcome back. We are going to discuss, it was recent, not too long ago, literally only 3 days ago. Additional information came out about the four 1900-year-old Roman swords that were found in the Judean desert, or basically a large group of caves next to the Dead Sea near Israel, whatever. All right, due to recent events, we're going to touch on this just a little bit, not go too deep into history. This is, after all, a giant sword channel, and I like to discuss historical things about swords, but not dive too deep into history itself. Okay, so let's take a look at this. As you see right here, it's a very rare find. These are 1900-year-old swords. Like, that's... A lot of civilizations have come and gone since these swords were first forged and then taken to connect. So what exactly happened? How did they come to be poof gone? Here's a nice little close-up image, and I'll put a bigger one up here for you, of the four swords. Now, three of them, I believe the ones that you see in the middle are called Spatha swords, or Spatha. They're 24 and a half, I think almost 30 inches long, fairly common sword used by Romans. Then the one on the far left is more like a ring pommel sword, a little bit smaller, 18 inches. And then, of course, they found a pilum head, possibly belonging to a spear, which the wood long since rotted away. But the reason why these things were found, and they were found in such good condition, because the Dead Sea is so arid. I don't know if a lot of you guys know about or remember the Dead Sea Scrolls that were discovered not long ago, and then additional pieces of Scrolls were discovered as well, and it's providing and exposing more and more of our history, or at least accounts of history that we didn't have access to. So let's take a look at this here. Archaeologists in Israel have discovered four Roman-era swords in a cave near the Dead Sea. Even at roughly 1900 years old, artifacts are exceptionally well preserved, which we can see because that's super old, according to a statement from the Israel Antiquities Authority, which announced the find earlier this week. The swords have wooden and leather hilts, and their steel blades are all between 60 and 65 centimeters, 24 and 26 inches long. The researchers haven't yet carbon dated the weapons or the head of a javelin, known as a pilum, found alongside them, but they think the artifacts came from a Jewish uprising against the Romans in 130 CE. Now, reason why they would be so excited about this particular era, I'll get to in just a moment, but let's just say it has a huge, it's a very important part of Jewish history, Israel history, Palestinian history, Syrian history. It's a big conflict happened back then that leads to a lot of conflict today. All right, let's talk a little bit more about the Revolt and a little bit about the swords and why were the swords hanging out in these cliffs? Because I'll show this picture right here. These caves are really, really high up. Now, someone had to go way out of their way in order to hide these swords here. So let's take a look at this. So the Bar Kokhba Revolt, AD 132-135, was a Jewish rebellion against Roman rule in Judea that briefly established an independent Jewish state. Led by Simon Bar Kokhba, it was the last of three major Jewish-Roman wars, as I mentioned earlier. Archaeologists believe that it was during this time that the swords were hidden in the cave. During the revolt, many caves in Judea and other parts of Israel were used by the Jewish resistance. After the war, Emperor Hadrian sought to erase the memory of Judea, or ancient Israel, and replace it on the maps with Syria Palestina. Hence why it's such a touchy subject, and why they're so stoked about these swords, and why they kind of want to hint that, hey, this could be from the Bar Kokhba time period. After this final revolt, Jewish people were largely barred from Jerusalem and what was Judea. Now, that's a nice way of putting it. Let's see here. It was pretty brutal. So this is what happened. Let's touch on it just a little bit. We'll move on. Much of the Jewish population was killed or taken into slavery. Roman historian Cassius Dio reported that 580,000 Jewish men were killed in battle, and the number of those that perished by famine, disease, and fire was past finding out. Thus, nearly the whole Judea was made desolate. Ancient sources indicate that the price of slaves plummeted because of the large influx of Jewish slaves to the market. They were indeed led captive among all nations. Now, where that last part came from was a quote from Jesus where he basically warned Christians to stay away from that part, stay away from Jerusalem, because it was about to be completely destroyed and made insulted by the Roman army. which is what happened. A huge Roman army came in and then just completely wiped out everyone there. The Roman Empire was not going to have that. If I remember correctly, if I'm reading this, that 10 total legions, yeah, there we go. Revolt more devastating. During the Bar Kokhba event, a much larger Roman army was involved in 60 years earlier. 10 legions, nearly a third of the entire Roman army, with troops coming from as far as the Danube and Britain. So they brought everything. And then Emperor Hadrian, you know, Hadrian's Wall, Emperor Hadrian, well, he had a hand in this as well, brought 10 legions and just completely massacred them. So really ugly, brutal time. But it is fascinating that we have these swords that are found and history that is being gleaned from all this information. However, current conflicts, I think, are going to put a hold to that for probably an indefinite, well, I wouldn't say indefinite time period, but for a while. Let's just put it that way. Me personally, I think it's fascinating. I hope you guys do too. Obviously, I like talking about swords on this channel. We have a giant sword. And I've done past history videos and shorts in the past that people, at least all of you, seem to enjoy, or if not, you enjoy the destruction that I inflict upon everything. Just so everybody knows, we have a Shopify channel, our Shopify shop up and going, and we have an Etsy store as well. And you know what? We would really appreciate your guys' help and support. We had a Patreon up there, but no one really touched it. So I thought maybe some cool, awesome stickers would work for you guys. And it's just a show of support to help us get, you know, additional targets. A lot of people ask, like, well, why don't you do these kind of targets? Like, well, because it is expensive. Destroying things is very, very costly. And I'm lucky to live in an area where there's lots of apartments, and people tend to throw stuff out all the time illegally, and I just pick them up, destroy them, and then throw them away. Or recycle them most often than not. Anyways, Outlaws, let me know what you guys think. If you enjoy videos like this, maybe a little more detail, maybe a little less detail, you let me know, and we'll see you next time.